This will be a good time just to talk a little bit more about the geometry that I spoke about earlier. When we break down this curved surface covered in here, we're breaking it down into sections, and the sectioning pattern depends very much on this understanding of triangles here. And I'll show you this section, which is a rectangular piece, 4 sides. But if we look side on, here we see a triangle. And this thickness of the section being the base, the top of the section being one side, and the underneath being another side. When we're taking a section to cut, the top is the new hair we're cutting, the bottom is the guideline which we're not going to cut. Depending which angle we choose, a higher angle makes the top section shorter in relation to the underside, which increases the layering. A lower angle makes the top section longer, this triangle, than the underneath, and that means less layering. So just understanding that principle of how lift affects length of what you're cutting is really the basis of everything that we do. The layering around here is an area that most hairdressers have great difficulty with. Either they don't layer enough, leaving it all one length, or they layer too much and leave a hole. And a lot of it is simply because they don't stay focused on the angle that they're working to. And working up this section here, it's the same principle from the bottom layers up to the top layers. We stay within one plane here, almost like there are rail tracks either side. We mustn't veer left or right. And all the while I'm actually looking at what I've created down here. I'm not working blind. I'm seeing the result of each section, playing with the hair, seeing whether that's close to what I expect. Where you make the cut, it's important that the tension of the hair of the guideline section and the tension at the top is true all the way through. I need to make sure the whole section gets to that point with even tension below and above. What happens if I put my comb in at this angle and then change my mind up here? It may appear to have tension on the top, but I've actually lost the tension underneath. So my guideline is no longer true. And if I was to cut that, I would make an error. The difference with this method is that really you create the shape that you want. And it's much more about understanding the feel and visualizing in 3D. And you learn to relate the angles that you're using to the shape you want to create. See, the beauty of the diamond dry cut method is that you can do anything. There's nothing that you can't achieve. You can see a shape and you can do that. And that's really why people pay so much more, because every single hairstyle you do is unique. So I'm going to move around to the front. And what I want to do here is take a section which follows the angle of the hair so that I've got a fairly even thickness of hair creating the baseline. So much the same at the back, I'm starting with taking virtually nothing off to create that first layer. So as we get beyond the hairline, our sections are straightening up. They can be a little bit thicker. As we come a little bit higher up, we're bringing the hair a little bit more forward and a little bit more lifted. Just like to show how the layers on this side now bevel away from the outline, creating a softness and more interest, but very evenly balanced all the way through to the base, all the way down here. In an ideal world, I'd have a little bit more hair to work with here, but you know, that's perhaps still to grow through. It will now sit and move better, whether it comes forward or whether it goes back. This side will now move more fluidly, and the layers will move more fluidly, because not only is the outline balanced, but also the weight distribution between the front, the side and the back is more in tune with itself. So as the hair moves forward and moves back, it will move as one rather than in three separate pieces. So now we come to the most difficult part of a haircut, the area that hairdressers seem to find the hardest, this back quarter here. And I think it's often a case of loss of focus, where they forget where they are, where the client is in relation. They start working without being focused, angles change, and when angles changed, the length changes. And often hairdressers finish the side and find it an inch shorter. So I've completed stage 2, which is the three-dimensional shape. And that, as you can see, we've got a much more balanced shape now. I've dealt with some of the very thin parts here that were causing the hair to separate from the length. We've got more width naturally moving up into the hair. You see how this moves now. It's much more free, much less just hanging straight down, which it was before. Everything's more supported, but it's still not as perfect as I think it could be. But I've taken it as far as I can with outline and layers. And this is where I will come into stage 3, which is texturizing, which will just give me that little extra refinement to make it absolutely perfect. And with a little bit of clever point cutting, we can just bring this out a little bit more here, soften this a little bit more here, and the whole haircut will look more balanced and more refined. What I want to do, I want to break up my solid lines, but without going too deep into the hair. A lot of hairdressers make the mistake with point cutting in taking it all the way very close to the roots. And whilst I'm sure there's a case for that with some hairstyles, in this sort of refined work, it's really not necessary to take that much out. All the lengths are still there. We're just softening the ends, and we're using quite a steep angle here, just to take about ½ inch, ¾ of an inch into the hair, just to break up those heavy parts. Now I'm not going deep, because here I don't want to take away too much hair, but I do want to remove that very hard line, because that heavy line at the bottom doesn't really tie in with the rest of the feel of the haircut. That's the haircut done. What I want to do now is to damp the hair through. All this working on the hair has made it a little bit tired, taken out some of the natural body, and by wetting it through now we'll re-energise it, and we'll see more clearly the shape that we have with all its natural life. Already you can see how the hair looks and moves, and to me the way hair moves is so important in terms of the whole image that comes across and the energy that comes across with hair. This will work if it was blow dried straighter. It would work in various wavy styles as well, but the key thing is that there's a fluidity all through the hair now between front, sides and back. We've got something which moves as one, forward and back, and it has a lovely energy, and it's something which Simona can wear very full if she wants to, or very sleek, and it will work just as well either way, on the face, off the face, with lift, without lift. So we have connecting layers now. As the layers from the side come through, they don't end suddenly. there are actually connecting layers that take it down to the base, and that means we have a better shape through here and through here, and these three parts, front, side and back, have a continuity, and that greatly affects how hair moves and how it behaves. What do you think, Simona?
I'm very happy with this. It looks
Fantastic.
like I have more hair and this still long.
Yeah, and actually you've lost nearly 3 inches, but it doesn't look vastly shorter because we've compensated by much more width and much more energy. Thank you, Simona.
Thank you.